The chapter begins with the Straw Hat Pirates, and the giants gathered, as Franky announces to the warriors of Elbaf that their search has concluded. The giants appear disappointed with the news, but Franky reassures them, summarizing that although they searched extensively, they found nothing. He emphasizes, however, that they believe their friends are alive and well, and expresses gratitude for the giants' efforts. Robin agrees, suggesting they should wait in Elbaf, as everyone is headed there. Jinbei adds that his network search didn't yield any results either, but he appreciates the giants' dedication. Brooke comments on their dwindling food supply, pointing out that they can't continue if they're at risk of starving. One of the giants laughs, agreeing that if the Straw Hats trust their friend's safety, then they must be fine. The giants decide to return to Elbaf, also noting that they're out of food and drink. The scene then shifts to Luffy, standing in awe before a giant castle. He marvels at the ancient trees, immense mountains, and a rope bridge, wondering how old everything is. Nami, similarly overwhelmed, feels dizzy just looking at the scale. They observe giants approaching on the bridge, including a new giant doctor who complains about a peculiar individual joining their crew. The giant cook, Goldberg, explains that this individual is a good navigator. A young girl giant voices her dislike for the newcomer, asserting that Loki isn't the shame of Elbaf. This person is. Goldberg laughs, adding that this will only make Rudo happier. The girl also comments on a crow, Renu Piper, which was seen carrying a small bird in its mouth, and Goldberg laughs even harder. As Luffy and his crew spy on the giants, Usopp excitedly realizes they are in Elbaf. Sanji is also thrilled, noting the beauty of some giants. Luffy tries to announce their presence, but Nami stops him. One of the giants briefly senses something but chooses to move on. A fox then approaches on the bridge, and Luffy stands in a bold pose. Zoro urges the group to hurry, warning that they won't have any place to hide if the giants return. Nami reassures him that the bridge's massive size provides plenty of hiding spots. Sanji confidently tells Nami that he has balanced on ropes many times, and Luffy echoes this, asserting his skills as well. Usopp adds that it's a fitting trial for a brave warrior. The forest below them is packed with giant wolves. Suddenly, Luffy senses something. Zoro asks what he feels, and Luffy responds that there's a tingling sensation. Sanji, determined to prevent any rash actions, stops Zoro from exploring, reminding him and everyone that they shouldn't set foot in this dangerous forest. Luffy points in the direction and says that it's the creature he heard roaring back in the Block Kingdom. With that, he leaps off the bridge and tells the others to keep going across. The group is shocked. Nami calls out, asking what Luffy is doing, and Chopper wonders where he's going, especially since there are wolves and foxes below. Meanwhile, the others continue walking on the bridge. On the other side of the bridge, the crew is stunned to see the bounties of two giants, Broggy and Dory, each with a bounty of 1.8 billion berries. Robin reads the bounty notices aloud, detailing that the giant pirate crew has returned after a century-long slumber, led by the Emperor Straw Hat Luffy. Broggy, the red orc, and Dory, the blue orc, have bounties of 1.8 billion berries each. The giants are shocked by their new bounties, commenting that they were once worth only 1 million, but now they are worth 1.8 billion. Robin explains that inflation over the last century has significantly changed the value of currency, making such high bounties appropriate for warrior chiefs like them. Meanwhile, Franky comments, clearly uncomfortable, about how the bounty is another example of lies and distortions. Lilith laughs and jokingly asks if Luffy really killed her, but Franky retorts, defending Luffy, saying that he was only trying to protect her. Broggy is puzzled about when the bounty photos were taken. Jinbei suggests it was likely taken some time ago, noting that the World Economic Journal has reporters everywhere and would pay for such a photograph. Robin then notices something odd, pointing out that when Luffy uses his free form, a strange mark appears on his arm. She remarks that she's never seen the mark clearly before, as Luffy is always moving around so much. She finds it unnatural because while his hand is blurry, the mark remains crystal clear. Franky dismisses it as a strange detail to focus on. The conversation then shifts back to the giants, who are amazed at how Luffy is now considered to be on equal terms with red-haired Shanks. One of the giants mentions that a young warrior named Hajruddin once traveled with them and is now reportedly one of Luffy's followers. Another giant recalls that Hajruddin was the son of a king, and he was a real temptation back then. Franky is stunned to hear this. The giant reveals that they had also planned to go after Luffy, but in the end, it was only the older giants who got into trouble in Erebus. The others ask what exactly happened in Elbaf. The giant began explaining the situation, recounting an event that occurred while the captains were away. In Elbaf, the king had a second son, known as the Cursed Prince, who was notorious for committing all sorts of evil acts. He was sentenced to crucifixion a few years ago, but he nearly managed to escape his punishment. It took all the warriors of Elbaf to bring him under control. The king, clearly shocked, asked about the identity of the Cursed Prince. The giant continued, describing how the prince's obsession with acquiring a legendary devil fruit, which had been passed down through the royal line of Elbaf, drove him to kill his father, King Harold, and consume the fruit. The giant warned that when the Cursed Prince is unleashed again, the world will face ruin. The prince's actions have made him the shame of Elbaf. The scene then shifts, and we finally see Loki, the Prince of Elbaf, in his true form. He is chained to a giant tree, with Luffy standing beside him. Both Luffy and Loki exude a powerful, intense aura. Loki, referring to Luffy, speaks of the kingdom, claiming that it is a place of power and fear. Loki introduces himself as the sun god who will bring the world to an end. Luffy, with his characteristic grin, introduces himself as the man who will become the king of the pirates. Loki challenges Luffy, questioning where he is, to which Luffy responds confidently. Loki declares Elbaf as the kingdom of warriors, the strongest nation in the world, but Luffy remains undeterred in his resolve. Finally, the scene reveals the full grandeur of Elbaf.